Let's talk briefly about using CSS in React Native. It's a bit different than what we're used to on the web. While React does not have any restrictions on how to use CSS, React Native enforces a standardized approach to styling. Not only that, you can't use all CSS properties in the React Native project. You can use only the subset that's supported by React Native, which relies mostly on Flexbox for layout and focus on simplicity overall. When we write CSS for a web project, we have to deal with how CSS support varies among different browsers. This is not an issue with React Native CSS subset, although sometimes you'll need to conditionally use or not use a CSS property based on the platform, or give that property different values based on the platform. Since React Native is just a JavaScript framework without a browser that can parse CSS, React Native's way to use CSS properties is using the JavaScript API. This means using JavaScript objects instead of CSS strings. And just like using JavaScript to represent HTML, using JavaScript to represent CSS allows for a much richer experience and greater control. JavaScript for CSS is supported in React itself, but React Native requires it and enhances it. For example, we can use an array of JavaScript objects in a React Native style property. If I want to give this text element two styles, I can use an array and just pass the other style as another element in this array. Let's give this text a background of rosy brown. So what I did here is specifying two objects inside the style property. One that's coming from the welcome object inside the stylesheet.create, and the other is just a regular JavaScript object with the background color. Of course, the second one is going to be merged with the first one. So if the first one also specified a background color, that color is not going to be used because it was merged with another object that has a different color. It's usually a good idea to always use objects from the stylesheet create method and not pass inline objects like that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I'll just add the background color in here, just like that. Make sure that is working. So we've got styles.container, styles.welcome. So the instructions are not used here, so we can delete that. And let's take a look at some of these styles. Most importantly, this flex thing here. So to do some more visibility into the styles, let's give the container a different background color. Let's go with orange. So as you can see, the container filled the whole layout, and then our text is just in the middle using the flex layout. So I'm going to comment out a few styles and show you what those styles are actually doing. In fact, we can simplify this text align here is not needed right now. So first of all, these three properties are part of the flex layout. If we comment those out, the container is going to go back to just its default area, which is the top of the layout. And it's a view that takes the whole width of the layout. And you'll see that our text is right there, and you'll see the margin here. So if we kill the margin, the text will actually go all over the container. So they have the same height and the same width. So by adding flex1, just flex1, the default direction is column. So when I say flex1, I mean extend the container to the all available space in the layout. So regardless of the device screen size, it will just fill the vertical layout. However, the content is still not changed. The container only filled the whole layout. So when we do justify content center, that means justify any content inside the container right on the center of how the container is being extended, which is vertical. So this will take the text and put it right on the center. And by the way, if we have more than just one text, so let's go ahead and do two texts here and have them both with the same styles.welcome, which is basically just the font size and the background color at this point. So let's have 1, 2. In fact, let's actually have 3. And just take a look at how that works with the container layout. All the content is justified right on the center. So there are a few values here we can do with justify content. We can do justify flex start, and that's the default. If you don't have anything, this will put the content right at the beginning. Flex end will put content right at the end. There is spaces between. It's actually space between, which is going to justify the content with as much spaces between them as possible. There's also spaces around, and that justifies the content by putting equal spaces around them. Now, the content itself, the text elements, are all aligned left by default. So if we change the align items property in the flex, they will get aligned center, and I can also align them left and right. So there is a lot of flexibility in positioning things around using this flex layout. And it's a lot more flexible than that. You can, for example, change the flex direction to be row instead of column. And if you do that, you'll notice how the content are now aligned in a row direction instead of a column direction. And all the other justify content align items values are going to be flipped in terms of what they do. So the justify content is going to justify it horizontally now, and the align items is going to align it vertically now. Let's go back to the default, which is column. We can also use flex values on the children to make them take different sizes of the screen. I'm going to comment out the align center one more time and have these text take the whole width. And I'm going to go ahead and add another style to these elements. And in there, I'll specify flex is 1. So now all of them has the same value. And you'll notice right away how all of them are now taking exact sizes of the screen. Let me go ahead and put back the margin so that we can see them. So we've got 3 text areas that all take 1/3 of the screen. And the reason they're taking 1/3 of the screen is that because all of their flex values are the same. Let's, for example, say that the first one is going to take 2, while the other ones are going to take 1 and 1. This means the first one is going to be as high as both the second one and the third one. So basically, the first one is going to take half the screen, and the second one and the third one will take 1/4 of the screen. So you can control these inner flex values to give any height that you want to any element on the screen. And there is no limit to that. I can, for example, say this is 5, this is 4, and this is 1. So you see how it sums up all these numbers and then give every element the portion that it requested. I highly recommend that you play this Flexbox Froggy game to learn about Flexbox. This game will teach Flexbox in a very fun way, and it's teaching the web model, and the React Native model is slightly different, but I think this game covers the basics that are shared between all of them. It's a fun game to play, and I think you're going to like it.